Hello, everybody. You're very welcome here to the Tuition Centre. My name is Eoghan O'Leary, and I'd just like to thank you for being here at this webinar tonight. And over the course of the next 20, 30 minutes, I'm going to explain to you, I suppose, why kids seem to enjoy the 21-day challenge so much and benefit from it, and why they're so happy to recommend it to their friends. So what we'll do now is we'll go through a quick little presentation, and I'll kind of maybe answer a lot of the questions that you have about the 21-day challenge. And then at the end, you can type questions into the Q&A, and I'll be certainly happy to go through any extra questions you may have at that point. Okay, let's have a look. So you're all very welcome, and the reason you're here is you're wondering what the 21-day maths challenge is all about. I was chatting to you there just as we were getting started, and people are here because they were recommended by neighbors and friends. They have daughters and sons with me for the weekly lessons. They saw it on Facebook. It was recommended. They heard it from somewhere else. They got an email about it. So it's all sorts of reasons. And I know sometimes for parents, particularly, they'd wonder, like, the phrase 21-day maths challenge. It sounds unusual. It sounds different. How can that be the most popular Leaving Cert revision course in the country? But it is. And for this reason, I suppose, why the word challenge is there. The challenge is we try to cover all of the 21, or over 21 nights, we try to revise the whole Leaving Cert course. So you're looking at all the topics, and you give a schedule and a timetable to students. And during the 21 days to 3 weeks, we revise every part of it. So it gives students a structure that I'm going to tell them will basically say the appropriate amount of weight to put on every topic based on how many nights we're spending on it. So let me give a kind of little bit of intro here. Um, well, I suppose, how are Leaving Cert students feeling right now about higher level maths? Okay. Well, I just had a lesson down in Bandon where I am earlier today. So my final face-to-face lessons with a lot of my students who have been with for 1 or 2 years. And, you can see it on their faces. I know them well enough. Like, this is now, it's nervousness. They're worried. Some of them, not very many, are ready to go. They're saying, right, let's get stuck in and let's get this over with. But the majority is the nervous and the worried. And I know exactly why. Like, I'll show you the other part here, unprepared. What if this happens? What if that happens? And that all leads to stress, right? Now, why? Why are they more nervous, more stressed, more unprepared now than before? To tell you the truth, it's not really anyone's fault or anything. It really does go back to COVID. The last time these guys were in second year, predominantly, if they didn't skip transition year, they were in second year when COVID struck. That's a crucial time for learning algebra, for learning your real core parts of maths. And then, very importantly, by the time their junior cycle exam came along, like, we knew as teachers, early enough in that calendar year, that it was unlikely to happen, the exam, and the students came to know it as well. And the reality is that they just didn't have that kind of learning experience. It's typical around that third year time, where the pressure of the junior cycle exam forces you to revise everything and to learn the most difficult topics. And together then with, even the last learning time in transition year and various difficulties from there, they just are behind. That is just the reality. And unlike a lot of the other subjects, the changes that are there in the maths exam, they don't really help that much. They help a little bit. You can cut out small little bits, but you really can't cut out that much because of the nature of the way the problem solving questions, particularly the topics, overlap. So with all that in mind, students are and do find it difficult, to feel really prepared for maths in the way that students would have pre-COVID. So how does the 21-day maths challenge help in that regard? Well, I'm hoping this is going to work now. We did a little trial run on this a minute ago, but this is a lady here whose daughter did the course with me a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. So I'm going to press play here, and I'm hoping that you'll all be able to hear her. and she's probably going to do a better job than I will at explaining how it works for students and parents.
To talk about the experience that my daughter had doing the 21-day maths challenge with Tuition Centre. I think it was the most incredible thing. We were so grateful that she did it. It kept her focused. It gave her a time every evening where she knew she was going to be able to focus on maths. There was opportunity for questions and answers. There was motivational speech. Sometimes I could hear her roaring laughing from the bedroom, just with some of the, I suppose, just debunking myths and things, and the encouragement that she got from Eoghan. And as I said, it kept her focused, it kept her engaged and not panicking about her maths. She was looking for a H1, she achieved her H1, and she totally attributed all of that to the fact that she was able to remain, I suppose, doing the 21 days, that it was piecemeal every single night. She was doing a little bit, towards consolidating what she already knew. I can only highly recommend the Tuition Centre and this particular course as being something that gave me as a parent great comfort, I suppose, and knowing that that she was going to be engaged in something that would bring her through and get her through the stress that is Leaving Cert higher level maths. I'm very grateful.
Well, that's it, and is that the sentence I took out from it there from the mother who put this in was the stress that is Leaving Cert higher level maths. And I imagine, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I imagine a lot of you are feeling that stress now because we know the stakes that are there. If the student is looking for a H6 to get the bonus points, there's pressure there because obviously at one level there's a very good chance it's going to be a deciding factor on whether they're going to get their first choice course or not. So I understand that only too well, and trust me, I feel that pressure as well. And one thing I would always say is, I've always given this guarantee to all my students who are with me down in Bandon and online for the weekly lessons. I've always said, if any student ever fails the Leaving Cert Maths, they get free grinds the following year. And I say that's a guarantee. And the reason I give it is because that the stakes are high. If the student fails, they're realistically, they're not going to get into any of the the university courses that they're likely to be looking for. So thankfully, no one's ever had to call in that guarantee in the nearly 20 years that I'm doing grinds. And I'm confident that it'll be the case this year as well. And the reason why is, well, it is because, if they've got this far, and on top of that, if they do 21 nights where they're doing an hour a night work with me, and then realistically they do the homework on top of it, as they will, just the nature of it. The reality is it's like training for a marathon or something. They have the training done. They have the money in the bank almost. It's like, it even if the exam is difficult like it was last year, the students who are here and who've done the work are just going to be better off than the students who haven't. So does it work? Well, let me give you this example here. So this is from 2022. I'll talk about 2023 in a minute. So this is 145 students who, on the day of their Leaving Cert results, they filled this in. So they filled in a survey for me on the day of their results. So these were their grades in their mock exam, their pre-exams, so you can see like there was over 10% of them had H8s. Only one of them out of 145 had a H1. What grades did they get in the Leaving Cert, which was obviously what they were telling me about that day. So all of these 145 had in common that they did the 21-day course and they stuck with higher level maths, and they of course filled in the form. So obviously a massive turnaround there. And there's no H8s, no H7s, there's only one H6, and all the way up to obviously 22% of them getting H1s. Now there's caveats there, the pre's were hard, grade inflation is there, all those kind of things, but still, those were the jumps that were there based on the students. And again, how would you respond to the statement, attending the 21-day challenge helped me achieve my grade in higher level maths? Of course, they're like 70% saying strongly agree, pretty much the rest of them saying they agree. There's probably one person that had the H1 already and they kept the H1, so they were going to get it anyway. So of course, like naturally, I'm delighted when I hear that the feedback of the parents and the feedback of the students here saying this. So you might think like, God, this is magic, but it's not magic. It's like this is a guy teach with tie gums. I'm sure some of you have seen him on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. He did a kind of a little thing there. If I was doing the Leaving Cert again, I'd do the 21-day challenge. But this was the line he had. He said the 21-day challenge is such a simple but perfect concept. And what I would say is it is simple. All we do is we revise the course an hour a night for 21 nights. You go through all the topics. But it kind of it just it works perfectly. And I suppose as a maths teacher with the experience, I knew it would work for people. It works online in a way it couldn't work face to face because people wouldn't spend the time traveling in and out to, a tuition center face to face or something like that. But it works brilliantly online because they sit down for the hour, they do the hour, and they know then, they know, okay, well, that's that part of maths covered. And they don't end up going down a rabbit hole, spending 2 days on something that's not going to come up. So what we do is this. Each day we cover one topic. So day one is what we call tricky algebra, right? Okay, they're very familiar with algebra from fifth, from obviously from junior cycle and then fifth year. But there are some parts of it which are tricky. Question one in last year's Leaving Cert came up. That was tricky algebra. And again, I would say the people who were with me last year, again, we had practiced questions like that. So, they weren't as thrown as other people. This year, again, I think, binomial theorem is something that's likely to come up in this year's Leaving Cert. Again, some students mightn't have seen that yet, and of course, they would find it tricky. So what do? We got a worksheet. I'll just show you little bits of it there in a while, but the students practice the questions because the reality is, how do you get better at maths? You get better by practicing. So students practice the questions in a kind of quasi exam setting. Obviously they're at home in the comfort of their own home, but only themselves looking at it. But they're practicing the questions. And what I do is I teach the harder bit. So at this stage they are familiar with a lot of parts. But there are difficult bits in there, and I teach and explain those parts. So it brings all the students along a bit. There's homework sheets with marking schemes. So again, that gives them extra kind of extra work to do. What they do then, say a student, it could be a student looking for a H6 or a student looking for a H1, but they're looking at and focusing in on different parts. But if a student does a question, gets stuck, can't figure out what the marking scheme means, they take a picture of it, they email it to us, and this is myself and a team of 3 others who will respond to that email and say, okay, this is what you do at that line. And so that just keeps everything going. It builds a fierce momentum. And those people are with me online as well, so for the lessons. So again, sometimes I'll be saying, what you get for this question, and people be firing in answers. And the team and myself will be responding, particularly if people have made little errors. And at other times they'll be asking questions of me, how'd you get that line? And again, the guys in the background will be answering. And what I do is I focus on the topics which are most likely to come up. Okay. So it's harder for other teachers. Like I would always say, you never hear me criticizing a maths teacher or anyone else, because as far as I see, every maths teacher is working very hard because the nature, the length of the course, everything, they're working very hard. But where I have the advantage is, look, I've been doing this for years. I do Leaving Cert honors maths grinds all the time. So I have the time, and I have the experience, and I have the kind of work done already. So I have a kind of, an Excel sheet where I kind of keep track of everything that's come up. It allows me to kind of say, okay, I think this one is more likely to come up. And it's not a kind of rocket science. I'll show you exactly how I do that in a while. But what it means then is we apportion the time appropriately to the type of questions that are likely to carry most marks. So how exactly does it work from day to day? So this is what the students are looking at. And for, I think there was a lady there asked earlier, like, will I give a timetable of the days? So that is there, right? So I'll show you again. I'll go on to there in a little while once I've finished this, but this is what the students see, okay? So the students look at this right now. If the students have purchased it already, this is what they see. They say, okay, day one, okay, I've got this sheet here, the formula not in the tables book. They need to print that out and remember those formula. But for each day right now, I got little videos there which are explaining the harder bits, right? But then I put up the worksheets, and I put those up, just beforehand, because I get students to print them out, and we work through those each day. But behind the scenes already, it's all kind of ready to go. So like this is what it looks like from my end at the moment. So we have this stuff here, the day one, the extra material this to go in. So the worksheet is there. We'll have the marking scheme. So we'll put up the worksheet. The students be working on that during the lesson. Afterwards, I put up the marking scheme to cover anything else that we haven't got to, so they can look at that. And obviously, I'm going through the questions with them. Then we have the optional practice questions, so it's homework questions. But again, it depends. Like, if a student is looking for H1, they're probably going to do more homework than the student looking for the H6. The student looking for the H6 might be going back through the work that we did during the lesson. And then for every section, I've got the extra additional recordings as well. And they're going into every little corner of the course that's possible. And again, it might be your H1, your H2 student looking at that, or the student who knows, God, yeah, we didn't actually do the binomial theorem question. And now he's saying that might come up, so I'll look into that. So if I come back to this, maybe just because the lady there was asking about the daily schedule. So if I go to here, so this is the, if they click on the 21-day maths challenge, this is what they're going to see. And down here, then this is basically your schedule. So some of you will be more familiar with this stuff than others. Some of you will have kind of nightmares about about this yourselves, And I'm quite sure that students from last year's Leaving Cert will be having nightmares about that paper one, and in the future, sometime 20 years from now, they'll wake up with it. And so you see here, right, like I'm going through, so all the topics are covered. But say for example, differentiation, which is likely to be a very important topic in this year's Leaving Cert, as it is in everyone. So day 14 is differentiation skills, the key part to it. But day 18 is differentiation problem solving, because again, it's going to show up as a skills question and a problem solving question. So it's balanced out, what topics are likely to cover most marks. So the day, it's all laid out there. D21 and D19 is they do their exam on the Friday, paper one. So we're online Friday night. I remember last year I sent them the email directly after maths paper one when we saw it was difficult. I said to them, tell all your parents to sit in at the start of the webinar, the lesson 19. And I said, I'm going to explain the bell curve because that is the normal distribution curve. Anyway, I'm going to explain how this works. And I'm going to explain how you're all going to be fine when it comes to getting your Leaving Cert points from maths, etc., and explain exactly how the bell curve for maths works. And so then we got the Saturday and the Sunday, and like the Sunday night last year, absolutely everything we did in that last hour on the Sunday night showed up in the paper Monday morning. And, obviously that made life easier for the students. So, okay, let me go back to this, and then I'm nearly at the point then where I'll be taking questions from you guys, and I am very happy to do it. So again, like I'd say, like I would put work into kind of trying to make it a little bit easier for the students, kind of give kind of ideas of what are likely to come up. And again, I'd be caveating it all. Of course, I don't know what the paper are, but so like I'd have my little record of everything, like of the theorems that came up, the new exam, the new syllabus came out in 2012. So, the theorems, there's only 3 of them they have to learn off by heart these days, 11, 12, and 13. Back in 2021, I was, sometimes I say some students, I know there's only 3 of them to learn. There used to be so many more, but there's only 3 to learn. But sometimes some student, particularly if you're just hoping to get across the line, you haven't done much in geometry, you don't like theorems, some students will say, I'll just learn one, so in 2021, I was thinking theorem 13. But you'd be saying on the balance of probabilities, if one was to come up, it wouldn't be unexpected that one would come up this year, given the fact that there has been none since 2021. So you'd say it'd be more likely to be theorem 11 and 12 than theorem 13. So what does that mean? Well, during the lesson, then I'll go through it with them, and I'll just spend more time on theorem 11 and 12 than I would on theorem 13. And they'll have a recording then of theorem 13, and that's for the student. If you're looking for top grades, of course, you're going to learn everything. So, so the student looking for the top grade will watch the recording and learn theorem 13, and some of the other ones will probably take a chance on focusing on the others. So what I have then is like they have their worksheet and I have these, animated PowerPoints. So you're just looking at a still of one of them there, Joe. But it just makes it easier to teach it, when you have the animations like those graphics there are, be, the colors will be changing and popping up and all those kind of things. So the students just say that makes it kind of flow a bit easier and just makes it possible to cover far more ground far more quickly. So what I'll do here is this, right? Um, are the students happy with the 21 day course? Well, this is one again. So this is from last year's 2023. So what we did last year was this was on day 21, right? So after 21 nights, this was on the Sunday night, after paper one being as difficult as it was. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy would you be to recommend this course to a friend? So, obviously, if you're talking about like there's 399 students replied to it, if the average after them being with you for 21 days is 9.5 out of 10, with 70% of them saying they're 10 out of 10 happy to recommend it to someone else, obviously, I'm very pleased about that. So if I was to summarize then, right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try something here, with just looking at some of the feedback, where I give you a chance to ask some questions yourself. But this is one of the bits of feedback that a student just wrote in last year. It just works. Sometimes students would find it perhaps somewhat difficult to explain what exactly, to put it down succinctly. But this student said it just works, and I actually think in reality, it is like what Teach with Tig said. It's a simple concept, but it's kind of perfectly formed. It's just the right amount of time to cover to revise the whole course with the key topics, but also it's what would I say? The students can buy into it for that amount of time, and they do, and it's very interesting. I'll show you some of the other feedback here. But what I would say to you there is now would be a time if you want to type in a question. And I see a question here. Is it likely to go from a H8 in the mocks to a H6? And I'm going to say the answer to that is like a H8 can go anything from 0 to 29, obviously. So if it was zero, if a student scored 5% in the pre, it would be a different scenario in the mock exam. But like presuming that they got in at least in the 20s, we'll say, in their pre-exam, it would be absolutely realistic to make a big jump to the real thing, as long as they come in and they do the work and so on and so forth. And what I would say is, again, I haven't lost one yet, so I don't think I'm hoping this year won't be the year either. So feel free to type in any questions while I'm doing this. So this was from last year's cohort. After on the Sunday night, after being with me for the 21 nights, like how happy were they? 9.2 out of 10. And again, you got to remember that was after the horror show that was Leaving Cert Maths Paper 1 on the Friday. So, I imagine most of you heard all the kind of media coverage of that. So what did they like? Well, I'm glad to say, they did. So I said that with this one, they could take as many as they like. So my own teaching style, practicing the questions from the worksheets, like that is the core of it. That's what we're doing. And you get better at maths by doing maths. So then like, the structure goes along with that. That is the structure every week, every night. They say it takes the thinking out of it. Like, what am I going to do today for maths? Obviously the predictions, they just narrow it down, they just narrow it down. So the students probably identify it as like, okay, the predictions are great. But me, it's really just saying this is important, this is important, this is important, and they just kind of go along with that. There's practicing, we have blind questions as well, as what we call them. So questions that aren't on the worksheet, and that just kind of mixes it up a bit for the extra videos, the support, being part of a group, working together, the Q&A before and after, the extra worksheets, it all comes into it, being able to send in a query. And then if I said like, well, what do they like if they could only pick one? Well, I was obviously happy to say that they seem to like the style of it, But I think the style is just it is my obviously the way I teach every week as well. But it's the style is the practicing the questions, the structure, all that stuff, and it just kind of flows, I'm always kind of amused to hear the people saying like that, the son or daughter be laughing down the other room. And of course, parents can be kind of listening in as well, Joe. But I do often seem to get that feedback, and I'm always trying to think, I can't remember telling any jokes, but anyway, there must have been something in there that they found funny. What I'm going to try to do is this. Obviously, you can see here the people were happy, right? So I'm going to try and export this, right? And you're going to see, because I asked them a question down here, which is like to summarize it, right? To summarize, can you give me a summary? And so I'm going to see, does this work here while I'm looking for your stuff? So I'm going to export all of this, right? So okay, so you have some questions in there, and I'm going to look at that. So okay, so I need to click download on that. Now I'm going to try this here now and see will this work for me. So okay, so this was an anonymous survey, so there's no, there's no names or anything in there. So this is it. So I think from past experience, I don't think I can upload them all. I'm going to put them all into chat GPT here, right, and see. I don't think I can put them all in because it kind of gets overloaded, right? But we'll go with 250 out of them. Okay, I'm going to see, does it work? Okay. So, and then I see your questions there. So we will go to that. I'm sure some of you've definitely heard of Chat GPT and AI, etc. So I hope he doesn't leave me down. So I'm asking to summarize the following feedback in 5 bullet points. Let's see how it goes. He's probably going to say, I got to work on my English. Okay. So let me see now. Sometimes it gets overloaded. While I'm waiting for him to kick in there. Sometimes if I put in too much, it doesn't actually fire. Did that work for me? I might have to put in slightly less there. I'll give it another try there. While I wait and see, does anything happen there? Oh yeah, so question comes in. Okay, so is each day's session pre-recorded or is it live and interactive? So each day it's live, right? It's all live, right? But some students won't be there at 8 o'clock in the evening, because they'll have a match or they'll have something else on. And so it's almost straight away afterwards, as soon as it's over, it's there available to view. And some people, of course, will view that. Is there homework? Yes, there's homework as well. They get practice questions, yeah. So yeah, so people are asking again kind of about homework, etc. So okay, so a comment comes in here. I think you have to put the feedback into the same command as the questions, not two separate commands. Well, okay, let me try that again, so because usually I do it like that. I usually like to say hello to ChatGPT as well. But let me try it again. So some of you know more about this than I do. I'll forget about my bullet points and we'll see what it says here, right? Okay, we'll try that. Oh yeah, so that's what it was. It was too long, you see. So now let me go back here again. And if it doesn't work, well, we can just look at some of them. But so basically the questions that came in there first were around homework. And yeah, there is homework every night. And so again, the truth is they could spend, as much time as anyone would like on the homework because um let me try it again. Oh, okay. This is like comedians, they always say you should never try something new, you should stick to your script. So I think I'm learning that here now. Let me see now if I go again here from the start. So uh so they could spend loads of time, as much time as they like. Now I'm going to try this again here, right? Because normally he gives me this little thing here, right? And you can, no, there we go. It worked this time. Maybe it just didn't like the bullet points. The feedback provided highlights Overwhelmingly positive experience with the 21-day course, particularly praising Owen's teaching style, the structured approach to revision, the confidence boost it provides. And I will say that certainly is something that comes across is the idea around confidence and I suppose competence as well. Students appreciated the interactive nature of the classes, the comprehensive coverage of the topics, and supportive environment. Many felt that the course helped them to stay focused, boost their confidence, provide valuable exam preparation. Overall, the course received high recommendations and gratitudes from the students who participated. And it is one thing that comes across so much is the gratitude. It's actually kind of amazing, really, because you know, you know, uh, it's just kind of like that. Everybody in the whole education system is working very hard, but somehow we get here to 3 weeks to go after 8 years of primary school and 6 years of secondary school, and students are thinking, "Oh my God, I hardly know anything," and I know it's true, because I see it on their faces. So, no, a question comes in here, and this is a fair question, right? I understand this when it says, is it too much work at this stage and does it negatively impact on the rest of their subjects? Well, this is what I would say to that. And Marie, it's a very fair question. Is that like what a lot of students will say is depending on what they want to do and all the various parts, this is the hour they spend doing maths. They spend this hour every night for 21 nights and they know they're covered, for the basic part. Again, another student who really wants to definitely nail the H1, they have ample stuff to keep them going. But the reality is, and I was explaining this to students today, that at this point, the students have the opportunity to improve a lot in maths now, partly because, they don't have to attend some of the other classes in school that maybe mightn't be as high a priority and just say, we know everything's important, but maybe right now religion class mightn't be as important as some other class. Career guidance, if they have the CEO form filled in, it's not as important as it was previously. Things like that. So all of a sudden, there just is more time to focus on your highest priority subjects. Okay, I think I answered some of these already, and let me just give another look at this. Yeah, so absolutely. Can you ask questions? So you can ask questions just like you're doing there, like, and type questions in, but as well as me answering the questions live, and I have a good insight and instinct into what parts they're going to find the toughest. I have a team with me so that they're answering the questions. So say a student just gets confused about one part and says, I don't understand there how he got from line 2 to line 3. One of the other people alongside me will be answering those questions. So Marie asks here, what is the cost? So it's 147 euros for the 21 nights, which is 7 euros a night. So, compared to anything else out there, I do think it is tremendous value. I'm not sure what part of the country you're from, but it's we all know, like a lot of other courses out there, that people charging that sort of money for a one afternoon revision course and the run up to it. So the question comes in: is it corrected, the homework? So the way it works and the way we have found works online far better than anything. Like at times before, we would have had students emailing us in all their homework, but it just doesn't really work if they send in 20 photographs of homework because you're scrolling through. So what we do is we just get them to take a picture of anything they're stuck on, send that in, and then we respond to that and we explain that part, because I suppose we've been at this a long time now and we found that is the way that works for people. So now, what I will say is this, right? I'll just have a quick look back. I think I have answered everything that's there. So if there's anyone else, okay. So people asking, when does it start? Is it 8 to 9? So, okay. So the lessons are on at 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, right? It starts next Monday. So that's May the 20th. Okay. And it's starting from then. I do give the students the option. We do a survey beforehand of whether they want, sometimes some students, I mightn't be quite as tuned into everything students be up to. And sometimes students, there was 2 years ago, a student said, like on Saturday, whatever the date was, such a thing was happening. I can't even remember, some sort of match or something. Could we have it at 10 o'clock in the morning? And they voted overwhelmingly in favor of that. So we